I want to do a rabbit trail over to your very flamboyantly gay grandpa.
Oh, 100%. Oh my goodness.
Because
Yeah.
first of all, the mental image I get from him coming to your school is just perfect. I can't think of something better for a TV show or something along those lines. Like
You
it would
want
be amazing.
He was a bold man.
you
And
want the full rounded spectrum of the picture?
yes,
He
definitely.
he would introduce himself to my teachers and take their hand in his and say, "Oh, it's a pleasure for you to meet me," and kiss his own hand.
I love this guy. I love him so much.
And no one knew what to do with it, guys. Everyone was like, Harleigh's weird.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Growing Up Christian. I'm Sam.
I'm Casey.
I'm Jeremiah.
And Jeremiah, it feels like it's been a little bit since you've joined. You've been a busy boy.
Did you have to say it that way?
Yeah, I did.
I
You've been
guess I have been.
traveling.
You've been
or
racing
what are you-
cars and
Yeah, I had a
traveling.
track day and then a wedding weekend, and the race season's about to start. So yeah,
You're a
pretty
Corvette
busy.
guy, so you had to. You're busy like sprucing up your leather bomber jacket with a picture of your car embroidered on the back.
Exactly.
And like
busy, make groaning a bunch as I climb out of it, in and out of it 10 times.
Yeah.
How does your wife
Scrubbing
feel?
the grass stains off your Monarchs.
How's your wife feel about that new Frankie Muniz poster that you hung on your ceiling above your bed of him just heavily involved in NASCAR? Is that weird for her? Or is she kind of into it?
I mean, everybody used to love Malcolm in the Middle, so you just like seeing where your heroes end up. So it's all
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. And in Jeremiah's case, they end up in his Google search under like Frankie Muniz deepfake.
AI is getting really good. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay, so I started thinking. I was looking for, maybe we can have this conversation off in more detail, but I wanted
Yeah,
to
what
fuck
AI
around with
stuff were you looking
AI
for? No,
no.
let's go back to that. Let's go back to that. What were you looking for?
I was afraid to do the search, and I didn't successfully complete it because you have to like log in. I don't know. I didn't make a login for anything. I wanted to just do this quickly, and it wasn't working, so I just went back to writing a paper. But I keep seeing the stuff that people are doing with AI, and they'll make a fairly elaborate sentence, and some really goofy shit gets churned out. And I got really curious as to what AI might come up with if you were like youth pastor who's obviously cheating on his wife with one of the students or something like that. And I was a little afraid of what it might deliver, but I think it's worth it.
Right.
So I don't know.
You thought it'd
That's
be
my
like a
homework.
white guy with glasses and a beard wearing like a baseball hat.
Did you just me? Oh, gotcha. My wife's grandfather is he's pushing mid-90s, and he's not he's got maybe it's dementia, but also we're like maybe he's just old. I don't know, but I was out to eat with them. So Friday night we had this little like my daughter's school had like this someone's special dance thing. Basically it's a daddy-daughter dance, but they don't call them that anymore because family dynamics and things. So I took my daughter to that. Before that, we went out with to eat. My brother-in-law was taking his daughter too, and we went to the restaurant right down the street. And my wife's grandparents were there, so we sat with them. We're sitting there, and at the end of dinner, he just looks over at me. He's like, "You're growing a beard now? What? Everyone's growing beards now." And I was like, "I've had a beard for 10 years."
To be fair, that's not a really long part of his life, though. I mean, that might as well be yesterday.
It might as well have been, but I thought it was so fun. He was like almost annoyed by it. Like, everyone's growing beards now. I can't. What is this shit? It's like, okay, I guess.
When I went to the war, everyone was clean shaven. I tell you, clean shaven.
Yeah.
It is funny. Like I was watching this video today. There's this great YouTube channel called History Dose.
Okay.
And I posted a couple of theirs in the Discord. But they had one that I was just like doing dishes and clicked on today that was like the history of mustaches.
Oh,
And
cool.
it was like this whole thing about like how it's just this weird like up and down trend of something as like benign as a mustache, like being in style, being, kind of out of style, like representing, wealth and affluence and importance. And then, wealth like soon after, kind of representing like counterculture, dirty, poor, whatever. It's just like in and out and in and out. And I was just thinking about like, God, there are so many things that I've heard older people like make a huge stink about over the years. That it's like, well, like 100 years ago, this was like the fancy, clean cut way to be. People
Yeah.
wore their pants like this or whatever, and it's like it's always like the end of the world. Like this is what happens when culture finally like drives off the cliff, and it's like maybe it's just a mustache.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it's no big deal.
I'm ready for those to be not cool again, though. I tell you what, like uh,
You never
I don't
came
know.
around on them, huh?
I mean, I guess I have one, but it's part of my beard. But every time I see like a 22-year-old kid with just a mustache and like the quasi mullets people are doing now, I'm just like, why? Like, that's about the only time where I'm like, that's just disrespectful to adulthood. I can't explain why, but just like innately, I know. I'm just like, why are you doing that? Why don't you just have a normal haircut like a real person?
I kind of like the mullets. I
Yeah,
saw
I'm
one
Some
this
people
week at the gym, and I was like, oh man,
some
if I
people
if
can
I'm,
pull them off, but I just assume people are doing them. They're all doing them ironically. Like I think that's part of the issue with like irony
okay,
is so
yeah.
prevalent now. Like, is anyone doing a mullet that isn't like wearing pit vipers and like listening to synthwave music and just thinks it's all a big joke?
pit vipers can die. I hate pit vipers. I keep
Yeah, but
getting
are those
ads for
better or
them.
worse? But at least those like have a touch of irony to them, unlike like the dudes wearing wraparound Oakleys everywhere that like have never gone. They've never been in style, but they've also never left.
That is true.
There it's a niche thing. It's like there's a type of person that does that, and you know what that person looks like, and you know what that person wears, and
And you know what type of videos
it's
they're
kind of
making in
like
their
it's
truck.
evergreen, really. It's like the people on the outside are always like, yeah, uh, but we've accepted that this is a way that's a way of life, and that's consistent. It's like what's something else that maybe I actually can't think of something that is that consistent. Because as a kid, I'm even as a kid, like, there's that style of person, and they existed when I was 10, 11, 12, and they just never go. It's like, it is a very evergreen thing, because when you're talking about mustaches, I remember being in middle school or early high school, and you're like, "Ha, mustache is so funny." Someone does one and it's a joke, and the only people who had mustaches probably were over like 45 or 50, and uh, like a friend of mine's dad always had
Not
one,
cool.
and you were just like, "Yeah, that's just his mustache." Like, and that's what he's been doing since he was 20. Um, and but yeah, like, so now with them I remember when they started coming back, it felt ironic, but I don't feel the mullets still feel like they have that a twang of irony, but I do feel like mustaches are very much like normal again.
I think mustaches, it's fine if you have reached a station in life. Like once you're 45 and you're wearing just like slacks and polo shirts every day, and like you've definitely given up on any pretense that you were ever cool and you're just a middle aged guy, like those guys, a mustache, totally fine. It works because you know that they're not putting a lot of thought into it. Like they have a close cropped haircut that they've had for 20 years, they have a mustache, their wife buys them their clothes at Costco, it's fine. Like
Rocking them
it
Kirklands.
exactly.
I
It's no
got a
big
big
deal.
disagree with you here, man. I think you're very wrong on this mustache thing, and this is
but,
where
but I'm
I think it's
but I'm
worth
saying
getting in a real fight about.
that's fine.
I,
I'm saying I have those guys, no issue, because you know they come by it very honestly, and the honesty is they probably aren't thinking about it that much. Like it's just I have a mustache now.
on the flip side, if you buy yourself a pair of those like wraparound Oakleys, what that signifies culturally is that you no longer feel like you have to pay child support.
Yeah. I do. I think
And
Where
you have a motorcycle, probably not a hard, like you have a Yamaha Roadstar that
Timberland
you
boots.
kind of let people think is a Harley. Like that's sort of your game there.
as opposed to if you buy pit vipers and have a mustache, you're just desperately hoping a woman will let you touch her one day, maybe. Like that's just what I think. Like I assume it's a very different genre of person. The 45-year-old dude, he already has 2 kids. Like he's trying to save for college. He's not thinking about it that deeply. Like it's fine. He was in the Coast Guard. Like this is just who he is, and it's okay. It's honest, you know?
What it is it's okay. So everyone is constantly projecting an image of themselves to other people, but some people have not, like they've gotten older and they haven't given up on the idea that like they're gonna be like some like unique edgy whatever, like you used to wear like band t-shirts with skulls on them and stuff, and like go to the mall, and you were kind of like it was a flex, right? It was like,
Right.
oh, guess what I'm into? Oh, ask me about my
Which I think
shirt.
all of us were very guilty of
yes.
at
100%.
different points. Yeah.
Yeah, or like you go home from college, and I'm like, Dad, you got to hear this song. It's my favorite. And you turn on like August Burns Red. Like he hates it. Why are you playing this? It's
Like Casey, I think I've already brought this up on the podcast once, but like when you wanted to make our whole video class watch a As I Lay Dying music video to talk about something stupid, I could just tell the whole time you were like,
I don't remember
experience my musical taste, experience
this.
it.
Yeah, like if you're 16 and you're doing that, like it's annoying, but it's
Right.
understandable.
But you get
If you're
that's part of the process.
if you're 38 and you're doing that, like I can't stand you. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to know you. Like just stop. Just like what you like. Like what do you
Like
do? Who is this
mustaches.
performance for? Yeah, like if the mustache is just like what you like and it's part of your thing and it's for you, then great. If the mustache is a performance, then like shave it
Um,
and
I I
do
agree.
some self-reflection.
And I think the length of the mustache has a lot to do with its societal acceptability. If it's like nice and tight, you're like, okay, if you have the right face for it, great. But like when they're just like really long and bushy, and there's no, it's like then you start feeling like there's they're shifting towards the ironic. I don't know. I feel like we could spend a lot of time on this topic, and
I just want to say I would love to have a mustache and I can't.
Well,
yeah,
how long have you waited? That's the hard part.
his
Is like,
entire life, Jeremiah.
well,
How
no,
old are
I
you,
meant
Casey? That's
without
how long you've
without
been waiting.
cutting it.
How many hours have I stared longingly in the mirror? Oh,
The reason I
several.
ask is because like I had to try and quit a beard multiple times until I was like, I think I might be ready to just push through. But it was a hard like 3-4 months before I was like, I think I'm gonna get on the other side of this thing. Like it was rough. So like my mustache took an extremely long time to grow, and I don't think I have that great of one either. Like my mustache is just passable. So I don't
Yours
know.
yours is a lot. Yeah, you got like 3 times the density that I have.
Okay, but
Like
like
if I try to grow one, I'm gonna get like the Toki War tooth, like the 2 little
Yeah, yeah,
like the
yeah.
like the linguini corners. You know?
I don't know. I feel like I can see some 5 o'clock shadow on you right now, like a consistent 5 o'clock shadow going
I
across.
haven't shaved in 2 days, so
Oh,
I got a
okay.
little bit. I got just enough to be annoying and like have to mess with it every day, but not enough to actually like hide my fat face.
Which sucks because you do have the perfect face shape for a mustache. Like if you had
Yes,
like the
see?
fireman, just the close cropped like
Yes.
fireman mustache.
I need that.
I mean,
Yeah, and I got that
yeah.
Mario build.
I think I just looking at you now, I feel like that just let the mustache come in. Just try for us. Do it for us, not for April. Don't worry about her. She's going to be there in a few weeks. I don't think she's going to leave over it.
She
So
will hate it.
I
Will she
You
like
and
it
I
when it
could
gets
do Sam and
to
I
the?
could do such a good like Mario and Luigi cosplay.
yeah.
It would be perfect.
Yeah, I that'd be fun. Next convention. I'll need April's help to put something together. Even though
Probably look
overalls are
most like
fairly simple,
Waluigi.
but
Is Waluigi
Oh,
the big
yes.
fat one? Okay,
That's
yeah, I
you.
could be him. Right.
Wario
He's
and
not fat,
Waluigi.
but
Is that what
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
gonna
Waluigi, yeah.
he's the emo Mario.
do? E Mario.
E Mario.
Oh my god! All right, I'm
Oh no,
moving us
Wario.
along, so we
Yeah,
can
sorry,
talk about
Wario was the
this.
one I was thinking of.
Let's do it.
Do we need to talk about Wario, or are we cool to move on?
We're we're
Sorry.
we're
I
moving on.
interrupted you just to clarify. I was talking about
Wario
Wario.
deserves his own episode.
Okay, all
Yeah,
right, cool.
we'll give Wario his flowers in a couple of weeks. No, so I I don't remember exactly when I came across this story. I think it's been kind of floating around for a little bit. But I keep seeing it show up consistently. And I thought it was when I first heard about it, I was like, "This is fucking insane. This can't be happening. It couldn't be real." And it's that there's this company that trademarked worship leader, and his other people have like had their social media accounts deactivated because of a form that they basically filled out to try to prevent people from using their trademarked words worship leader. And it's like when I heard that I was like, how is this possible? And then there was some, I don't really know where the information came around, but it started, I saw the date 2016 a couple of times, but with no real like reason for why that's like when they trademarked it. But have you guys heard of like anything about this story or
No, not at
the
all.
the controversy with them in an Instagram page and podcast? Really, it's a podcast as well that was called Worship Leader Probs, short for problems. Uh,
No, but that sounds like that's more of like a humor or like comedy podcast.
Right.
Is
So
that
you're
okay?
oh, I love that you noticed that because you instantly realized what that was.
Okay.
And that's part of what this whole like controversy was. And so worship leader probs is like uh it's a couple of guys who run it and they're worship leaders. They're active as worship leaders. So it's supposed to be like poke fun at just like the bullshit part of being a worship leader, people who don't rehearse, people who just everyone wants to volunteer and you just the
Bad
kind of
music.
yeah. So look, their page, their vibe, their careers, everything about it, not for me. I can't imagine myself being overly interested in what they're doing, but they built a following, and I'm guessing it's a somewhat Christian, mostly Christian following. So this company is called Authentic Media, and they own this trademark. So I guess for a couple, almost 2 years, they've been going back and forth with worship leader probs, and is like, basically, we're like, you guys, several phone calls, emails, like, you guys need to drop your name or change your name and logo because we think it too closely identifies to go ahead.
Am I jumping ahead to ask like what this company actually does?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's what I was just about to get to that. So, um, they're the back and forth on the logo and name for this podcast and Instagram and whatever it is that they built. So, Authentic Media owns it because they own worshipleader.com. And Worship Leader was like a publication for a long time. And so this is what I kind of blew my mind is that I don't know why I saw this 2016 date floating around, but it was like in 2016 they acquired this trademark, and I think what really happened was it changed hands in 2016. So it was trademarked back in uh, the 90s. It was like 1991 that it was
But
trademarked.
trademark, I'm assuming it was trademarked like in specific contexts, right?
Yep,
Like for a publication. Okay, like not
exactly.
trademark just anyone saying the words worship leader.
Yes, and that's where everything got misleading, though. That's what I thought was so interesting about the story is like all the stuff, all the
Okay.
posts, it's like, how do you trademark worship leader? What about all the worship leaders and all the churches and blah blah blah? So, the I, but I am interested in what you guys think of this after we I kind of clarify a bit of their history. So, Worship Leader was a publication that started in the 90s, and it was like Worship Leader magazine. and now it's just a website, and they provide tools and for worship leaders and blah blah blah.
Oh, the trademark was owned by Maranatha Music. Okay,
Yep,
which used to own Worship Leader the magazine.
and I
Okay.
believe it switched over to. I think that this Authentic Media Group bought that trademark in 2016 when they became like the new parent company for all this shit. So
Gotcha.
either way, so they have this whole like, they do have some pretty fantastic quotes in regard to people asking questions about to clarify their stance and how all this happened. Because so basically, they had this issue with worship leader probs because they thought that their name and their logo was too close to worship leaders' name and logo. I don't
Hmm.
see it. I don't see it at all. I think the fact that you immediately knew that it was a joke or satirical or poking fun at some of the aspects of being a worship leader shows that their concern, which was that people are going to mistake that group for them, is insane, especially considering nobody knows about worshipleader.com or the publication.
Well, people do, but that the overlap between those people and people who are following worship leader probs is probably not huge. It probably only consists of worship leaders who'd be able to know the difference. I see one of the other pages that was affected was Rogue Worship Leader, the
Yeah.
Star Wars themed one. I
Yes.
watch their stuff on Instagram all the time. That sucks. It looks like it's been restored now, but like I would never confuse that with like a
Yeah.
actual worshipleader.com or something.
So the
It's just
controversy.
people who suck being sucky.
Yeah.
Sounds like.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the stuff with like things with all this kind of things where I just my thought is just like, is worship leader making any money?
No,
Like what?
it's not really, and that's one of the frequently asked questions that they have set up is
So what are we
what.
talking about? If nobody's making any money, then screw you. Like
Oh,
who
but see, I
cares?
think this is where you misunderstand how important the mission of the gospel of Jesus Christ is, Casey. You've been out too goddamn long. You just
I
don't get it
probably
anymore.
do misunderstand.
Um, so Rogue Worship Leader got affected because of worship leaders' issue with worship leader probs. They ended up filing with Facebook or Meta or whatever the fuck that like a copyright infringement or trademark, I should say, infringement, whatever fucking paperwork you file for that shit. And so Facebook went and then they just knocked down all the sites that were closely that resembled that name enough to the point where they were just like, yeah, fuck it, we'll just hit the delete button on all of these. And that's when like kind of a shitstorm started for them, and they were like, they went out of their way to like, okay, fuck, now we need to go ahead and try to like get these other pages restored because they're not the ones we had the problem with. It was this one. I don't know why they felt so fucking passionate about worship leader probs, but I can tell you some really good quotes from them when people were like, what the fuck are you guys really doing? Like, does this really matter at all? And it does. And I think they clarify their stance pretty well. And I want to know what you guys think. So one of their statements was, since our founding in the 1990s, Worship Leader has sought to preserve the theology of worship, serve the church, bring together ecumenical forms of worship, and empower authentic expressions of worship. And their concern is that they've done a lot of work gatekeeping the theology of worship, and I think they have a monopoly on that. And God forbid somebody do anything to make viewers mistake them for part of their group. And I
Okay,
know,
but see, this is like I can see the argument for we want to make sure that our name can't be used by somebody else because we do something unique or whatever. Like
uh-huh,
it's a very generic name though. That's the problem. Like it's
yep,
one thing for them to be sparring with a meme account because they don't want the people to think that the meme account is them. I think that's dumb because they're obviously meme accounts. But on one hand, like I understand that whole side of like people who are being parodied generally don't really like the parody or the parody account, and I can see them being butthurt about that. But then
Yeah.
apparently, it looks like in 2017, when they were still owned by Maranatha with an exclamation mark music, they sent a cease and desist to Alex and I'm not going to pronounce that name correctly. Alex E, creator of Worship Ministry Training, originally called Worship Leader Training, and they said change the name or they take him to court. So this sounds like something that is actually crossing over into their lane a little bit. And he arranged a personal meeting with Fromm through a friend to try to resolve the conflict. And he said, I really wanted to do the Matthew 18 thing. I'm not going to go to court. Alex said in person from obliged and said, it's okay. We'll just make it work. You keep the name. And on the drive home, they called and changed their original stance that they need to change the name. So Alex just let it go because, but
These
he says,
people
Well,
suck.
actually,
so
no,
bad.
I'm going to give Alex some credit. He says the next scripture to follow is what the Apostle Paul says in 1 Corinthians 6:7, where he says, we should not take each other to court in front of a watching world. It's better to be defrauded, he says. So actually, I respect this Alex guy. He basically said, like, this is stupid. You're being an idiot, but I'm going to follow what the Bible says. So fine, take the name. If it matters that much to you, like, you can do that to us.
This is
Actually, I don't
like,
know anything else about this guy. He's cool. He seems fine.
yeah, he does. This is like trademarking something like success sales training and then just going after everything that uses
Right.
those words in like the sales industry or something. Like,
Ooh,
it's insane.
Their argument is that back when they trademarked worship leader, that wasn't a commonly used word at the time, and it somehow,
was.
I would think it was, but they're
Th-
convinced that they coined it. They think they coined it.
That's
They think they
definitely not true.
coined the term worship leader.
Yes. Their founder. They
Oh,
believe that their
man.
founder
Dude,
coined the term worship leader. How
this
fucking
guy
crazy.
This guy is unbearable. I guarantee this guy is just the worst person in the world to be around.
Yeah,
He's-
he said he says they've spent he goes in fact our own, this is in their like fact page on their website. It's in fact our own business has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years on our trademark through the purchase of worship leader from Maranatha Music. So they spent a lot of money to get that for someone who is adamant that they're making no money from it. And apparently
Then
they
it's
just
not a business, bro.
it's not.
Churches and Weird Hills to Die On. Name a more iconic duo. There's another great quote from Alex. He says, he says, what we have is not our own. He said, God has entrusted us to build the kingdom, not our kingdom, his kingdom. I like this Alex guy.
Dang, Alex has got the clapbacks.
Yeah, he has the theologically sound clapbacks too. Like,
he's got those high road beatdowns.
I know, and he's humble. What a guy! He's probably done something terrible. I don't know.
Now,
But
while he's humble, I just want to clarify the authentic media stance, which is owning and managing our trademark is part of stewarding the mission that God has laid on our
they bought
business.
it 5 years ago. I'm sorry for interrupting you. They bought it 5 years ago. Our trademark, and their name is Authentic Media. Please.
Well, God laid that on their business, and they take it very seriously, Jeremiah. They said
God
most
laid it on their
recently
balance
with the
sheet.
passing of our founder and the new partnership that we formed, we've been a bit behind, but now we're getting caught up and plan to continue to defend our trademark as we have for decades.
So we bought a bunch of crap, and we're now sorting through to see what we can get money out of.
Listen, I
speak
think
business.
I think the best quote they have so far is after all that, they go, God has so much creativity that you can lean in on your own giftings and come up with your own name.
God has so much creativity, but we don't. So we need to fight for our trademark for the most vanilla version of this phrase because we can't think of anything better.
I hate this guy.
Why don't they rename it to Authentic Worship Leader?
It's funny because it does feel like they do. So they're like, this is for business purposes. So people are like, well, what about all the worship leaders in the hundreds of thousands of churches? Like, yeah, unaffected, doesn't matter. You can call whatever role you want, whatever you want. This is if you're a business and we feel like you're infringing on our trademark of this, with our logo and then the words. But like worship leader is some vanilla ass shit, and it's a hill to die on, and it's a weird hill to die on. And I don't know how. I feel like there's a lot of like, I don't know a lot about anything really, but I feel like when it comes to like trying to trademark some like basic ass shit like this, there's usually some resistance. So they've clearly had it for a while before it was such, like if you tried to go and trademark such common vernacular, you would normally be turned away, right? So is it safe to say that
there are processes for that? Yeah, it's
It
probably just
probably
that no one has
wasn't
cared enough.
overly used at the when they
No,
took
no,
it.
it's just not used for commercial purposes.
Commercial,
Most people who
okay,
are worship leaders were
yeah.
just worship leaders. Like it, I think it's probably just hadn't had a lot of conflict because the market's probably not big enough to have a bunch of worship leader branded businesses around.
Right, you're just
I don't
the
know.
worship leader for a big mega church or something,
Right.
and it wasn't until they brushed up against a podcast that made $40 a month that they really had to blow their load.
I think this is probably pretty telling. Well, I'm skimming back to this article from Christianity Today. Oh, okay. The guy who ran the Rogue Worship Leader Instagram, he says, quote, I expected to have to fight off Disney and Lucasfilm, not a Christian company.
Yeah, and Lucasfilm and
It's
Disney,
just
dude, they are
They are
ruthless.
litigious.
yeah.
Yeah.
The mouse gets paid.
I love it. There's this like this person has no one in his life that loves him enough to be like, dude, you gotta stop. Like, stop. This is your perspective on this is
Well,
flawed.
isn't Fromm dead? Yeah, he died in 2020, Chuck Fromm. So Authentic, they just own it now, and now they're just going after anyone that they can. I mean, it doesn't sound like Fromm was a great dude, but yeah, it's not even directly his
What
fault
else
anymore.
does Authentic own?
That is a
Um,
good question. I'm gonna try to find out.
I had their website up. It's a handful of things, but while you look that up, Jeremiah, let's with their what on their fact page of what happened. I think this is funny because this is what I was trying to say earlier, and I'll just read their statement on it. They said they were nearing a settlement. This is with the party that they were arguing with, which I believe would have been the worship leader probs. But it says when communications with the other party went silent, we issued a trademark form with Facebook, which resulted in 7 accounts being taken down. We admit that this was an emotional reaction to a very real issue. It was not coordinated with our legal representation, and the result was the unintentional shutting down of several unrelated accounts. We worked quickly to see if these profiles are stored, making direct requests on the social providers for the same. We are sincerely sorry that any of our actions around the situation created confusion, disappointment, and disunity. Unity is a big one. You got to stay unified in Christ. Uh,
Everyone's concerned about that.
yeah. So now
So
they're just like, we apologize for the optics. It's Facebook's fault that we're cunts. Oh, sometimes that one slips.
okay, so this is maybe a little bit ironic. I'm trying to figure out what else Authentic Media has, and so I just Googled Authentic Media, and I have found 2 different companies, and I can't figure out which one
Yeah,
is the
one's
correct
a
one.
UK company.
There's authenticmedia.co.uk, but their logo I found on this other Instagram called authentic_media. It's the same A, but they only have 344 followers. They say they're a Christian publisher passionate about providing resources to help people connect with Jesus. Now, here's where it gets a little weird. Authenticmedia.company is a different website that is I think the ones that have worship leader, 30 years of equipping, training, and transforming the worship community, we literally coined the phrase worship leader. I think this is the one
Yeah.
that has that. Okay.
Yeah. They think they coined it. Yeah.
They have
God, that is so
authenticmedia.company. A different company has appears to have the name Authentic Media before this one does.
Yeah. They're losers. They think that they have this whole like concept. Like, oh, this concept is very important to our mission. And God forbid it be intertwined with something that's not taking
Well,
the
so
gospel seriously. Like what the fuck is their mission? I don't what are they like I know what it is, but like why do they think that like preventing people from using these words is so integral? It's like that they're successfully completing this mission or continuing on with it is so it
Authentic Media
hinges
was
on it. It's so
they were
fucking weird.
established in 2021.
God, this whole
They're
thing
a
is
startup.
stupid.
Yeah.
They're a Christian startup that bought some brands. Okay, but is anyone
They
like
probably are a startup that's probably had some investments in SPV.
Maybe they're like playing yeah. Maybe they're playing the heel and
Now they need this.
this is their promotion strategy. Like
It,
they're kind of doing like a
like viral
fresh and
marketing.
fit sort of thing, you know?
Yeah.
is anybody I know there's always like lots of takes on the internet. Is anybody on their side in this or is everybody just clowning them?
Uh, no one's on their side ethically or morally. And legally, I think they have a I think they're doing all right. I mean, that's what I thought was interesting about this was like they're clearly a bunch of losers, but legally they've had like, it's been copyright. I mean, trademarked for so long. Like
Well, no, it hasn't actually. It doesn't look like it's had to stand up in a court case. They're just threatening legal action, and they're taking advantage of the
that's
fact that
true.
most
Ooh,
people
I
doing
like this
ministerial type
take.
stuff, they're gonna. I have to deal with this stuff at work from time to time, where somebody like they try to like patent troll you, and what
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
banking on is you will pay them some small amount of money to license whatever crappy patent they say you're infringing, because that costs less money than fighting them, and
that's
that's all that
right.
Yeah,
they want.
it's like the Mormon salamander letter thing.
Yeah,
Like if you claim if you're convincing enough and claim that like you found evidence that Joseph Smith wrote a book about how he was a furry or something like that, like the Mormon Church will give you $1 million to go away.
Just
oh
because
my
that's
god.
inconvenient for their narrative.
Yeah,
I'm curious. I have so many more questions about what you're
Yeah,
what
I
you
would
just
love
said
to go
because I've
down this
never heard
rabbit
this
hole,
before.
but
But like I think that's all they're trying to do here is they're just threatening legal action because all these small like a meme page is not going to go to court over this. Like it's not worth
yeah.
it to them.
Oh, so
They're
that's
just
the
trying to make money
challenge.
off.
Have
That
someone
might be a
actually
challenge.
have someone ride this to the top. I would love that. I like that. I think you're probably right. I think you're probably spot on with that they just it hasn't been challenged by any real player, and it probably could be. That would be sick. I
There are
don't
some
know.
aspects of like the way lawsuits work in America that really suck for stuff
Yeah,
like this. Is it's
yeah.
so easy to just
This
threaten a lawsuit against somebody with no repercussions.
it's really stupid. It's ridiculous that people can just like bog you down in that stuff with like no threat of consequence.
yeah.
It's like
Right.
in other countries,
The American dream.
if you bring a lawsuit against someone that's just garbage, then you get stuck with the legal fees.
Well,
Yeah, but not
there is a
here.
process for doing that in America as well, but like you're going to have to front so much of that for your defense, and then you
And you
have to win, and then you might be able to like
no,
get damages back from the other
Yeah, we
person. Like it's
barely
going
though.
to
You
be
have to countersue afterwards for damages, and it's
right.
bullshit.
It's
It's
going to
not.
be like almost impossible to do that.
yeah,
Yeah,
I know someone that's been through this in the last I mean, it's taken years and cost. I mean, it's insane how much it's cost to like defend themselves against like fraudulent claims. And at the end of the day, like there's I mean, if somebody wants to drag you through the mud, they can do it. You know,
forever.
it's
Yeah,
yeah.
our endless appeal system is beautiful too. Uh,
Joseph Smith was a furry,
yeah.
by the way.
Again, I
And
have a lot of
so if you
questions. I
want us to
just
take that back, Mormon Church,
Google the
we're gonna need at least
salamander
six
letter.
figures. Uh, we should uh, we should move this along to introduce our guest. I
Ah,
don't.
yes.
Sam's starting to realize the Mormons may be coming to kill us right now, and Sam's like,
No,
this maybe was fun, but now I start feeling like this is starting to feel a little real. It's starting to feel a little too real.
next week all about the sexcapades of what Joseph Mormon. What's his name again?
Joseph
Joseph
Smith,
Smith.
Joseph Mormon.
Oh my god.
A plug for a miniseries Under the Banner of Heaven on FX about a real murder that happened in the 80s in Utah in the Mormon church and the Mormon detective who worked the case. It's
Mm,
very good.
I've heard about
I
this.
started watching it. I didn't make it. I didn't make it all the way through.
I thought it was good.
Our guest this week is Harleigh Ellsworth, none other than the daughter of legendary crime fighter and really like the spirit of America, if you ask me. You know, Chris Evans can get bent. He's not my Captain America. I mean, the original Captain America, the only one that matters to me is Bibleman.
Amen.
And
Amen.
You got the daughter of Bibleman on the podcast?
that's right.
I'm not faking this, listeners. This is new information to me right now, and I am shook.
Harleigh's dad was Bibleman, and she grew up
Willie Ames.
during the period of time when they were shooting, you know, when her dad was creating Bibleman. I mean, her parents like made a lot of the props. They really like this was kind of their passion project, and they took the ball and ran with it quite a ways. It's pretty cool to hear the story. They sound like pretty incredible people.
Yeah.
And you know, showbiz people to begin with and stuff. I mean, these, you know, Hollywood Insider that grew up in that industry and stuff. And Harleigh got to, be along for the ride there. She got to act not only in Bibleman and some other things, and she just got some like really interesting story. It's one of a kind, and a great perspective on how her faith developed as a young person. And then, as she got older, that changed pretty significantly, like a lot of us. So it was a really interesting conversation, and I think you're going to really enjoy it.
Yeah. I think what was stuck out to me was that you have this idea of what the family or the creator of Bibleman would be like. And after talking to her, the whole family just seemed so cool. And hearing her story was like, it was so much different than you would expect given what we know about and how we grew up with things like Bibleman. Really cool. I think everyone's really going to enjoy hearing her perspective and what the family was actually like. It was cool.
Yeah, and shout out to the homies in Boys Bible Study for
Yeah.
introducing us to Harleigh. They kind of helped us connect with her, and so we appreciate them. And they did their own episode with Harleigh before this one, so you can go check that out on their page. If you like the show, leave us a review and share it with a friend. And if you want to get in on the conversation, tell us a little bit about your story and meet some cool people who are probably in very similar circumstances. Join our Discord. You can find a link to that on our link tree. It's in our Instagram bio. And with that being said, enjoy our conversation with Harleigh Ellsworth.
Hey everybody, we are back with our guest Harleigh Ellsworth. Oh, it looks like we're frozen right out the gate.
Oh, okay.
We're
It
back.
looks like we're good now.
All right. I'll go ahead.
Do you think maybe that was like the fiddler trying to interrupt the broadcast here?
Absolutely.
Sorry, I could not tell if we lost audio for a second too.
100%.
All right, we're good. All right, so here we are, everyone, hanging out with Harleigh. What's going on, Harleigh?
Not much. I am so happy to be here, and that was such an attack. I can't believe that the fiddler would do something like that to us on our first chat. Rude.
Well, the fiddler roams about like a lion, seeking whom he may devour.
Oh my gosh.
We do encounter a lot of devastating spiritual warfare on this podcast.
Wow, yeah, you guys came out of the gate hard with that. I wasn't ready for like scripture and verse already. So
I still got a few rocking around up there.
Yeah, they are. They're rolling around. They're rolling around.
Yeah. I'm always amazed by people who can just like people who are out, but then they can just like recall verses and they know like the verse number and all that kind of stuff. I don't know how people do that.
Oh, the only ones that I can recall that fast are like really spiteful verses. Like those are the ones that I'm like, yeah, I got that one.
For when you had to rebuke your brothers and sisters in Christ.
100%, you recall those moments the fastest. So now I understand. I too am impressed when someone has those just living within their soul and so quickly they can pull it out. It's incredible.
Well, there's a lot that never goes away.
We've done a couple like episodes where we go back and we'll go through like a Bible story. And it's like you think you've got it, like you heard some of these stories so many times that like you're like, I know the story of Esther. Like, but then you go back and read it, and like as an adult, like not trying to memorize the 100% factual account of the scripture and just kind of like reading it and going, what does that mean? Like, dude, some of them are crazy. It's pretty fun.
Yes.
It's a lot weird to go back and read them once you have concepts of how like consent works and adult relationships should function.
Oh, 100% use. It's, I kind of have likened it to friends that didn't grow up in faith or whatever. I talk with them kind of like, all of those songs that you grow up and you hear they're from the 1950s and you're like, that's a really catchy bop. And like, it's classic rock or classic pop. And it's, 1955. And then you hear it when you're like, 32 or whatever. And you listen to lyrics and you're like, I can't believe this. Like, I feel like that's kind of how it feels sometimes to read certain things back. But I mean, not everything, but just certain stories.
Did do we have Hey Arnold fans here?
100%.
Okay. Do you remember the character in that, Dino Spumoni?
Oh, yes.
He was supposed to be
Oh my God.
he was supposed to be like a rip on Frank Sinatra. He
Yes.
like sang in that style, but all of his lyrics were basically like about how abusive he is. And I
Yes.
was like, I obviously in a lighthearted, kids cartoon way, but it's about how he just like breaks stuff around the house and hates what his wife wears and stuff like that. And he's an asshole in the TV show. And the way it's just like on the nose with like what the way they characterize what some of the lyrics and characters were in that of the Frank Sinatra era. It's like that's a joke that ages really well. Like it's better
Yes.
now than I feel like it even was when I saw it as a kid.
Oh, 100%, because we're all evolving, in our mindset. Hopefully. Oh my God, hopefully. Maybe not all of
Yeah.
us.
People.
Yeah.
We've met a handful that have been in the same place for 50 years. But
Oh,
anyway,
man.
so Harleigh, where are you from? For the listeners, obviously we talked a little bit beforehand, so now you're rehashing some information. But
Yeah, well, no. So I was born in California. I was born on the beach. I am a kid
on the beach,
on the
like a
beach,
literal beach birth.
like covered in sand out of the
Perfect.
womb. No, I'm just kidding. No, the hospital was like overlooked the beach. I'm a Cancer. I like, evening thunderstorms. I moved to Kansas City when I was 1. My dad brought us out to the Midwest for work opportunities, and then we moved to Oregon for a while. And this was all while he was
Oregon.
producing Bibleman. And then we moved back to Kansas City, and then we moved back to Oregon because once was not good enough. And then we came back to Kansas City because, third time's a charm. So
Wow.
so that's where I'm from. I'm still in Kansas City now. But I have some kind of coastal influence.
Yeah, that's a lot of moving, especially back and forth to the same place. What was the longest time you spent in Oregon before moving back? Like when you would
Uh,
like go there and then head back?
so I think growing up until I was like an adult, I don't think we lived anywhere longer than 4 years.
Wow.
I think that was
What was
That's a lot of shakeups.
yeah.
Yeah. I, people are always kind of nervous about moving their children at a young age, but I found it beneficial, and I think it really instilled adaptability. So I had a good time doing it, but it is a lot of moving.
I feel like because we moved several times as when I was a kid, not quite that much, but like I think I was in second grade or maybe third, fourth grade. We moved from Atlanta to Michigan, and that's kind of where I grew up for the rest of my childhood and stuff. But I kind of feel the same way. Like I even now as a person, like I like the idea of those big changes like that and the chance to like start something
Yes.
new and which can be bad. Like sometimes you need to just keep your job.
Right. No, I get it. I love a good switch up. By the same token, everywhere you go, there you are. And that's something both of my parents always told me. However, I do enjoy a little wander once in a while, And so, I mean, even my husband and I, he's from Kansas City. We try to travel as much as we can and just see what's out there, because it's nice to be challenged. It's nice to see something different and meet new people and have them, kind of tussle with your way of life. It's fantastic.
You're describing a lot of things that I don't like right now.
You know what's fun? I think my husband would agree with you. He's like, I don't want to tussle with anyone.
Ooh, did you say meet new people? I'm good. I'm good with the same friends I've had since high school. I'm okay. No, it's funny. We've talked a little bit, like it comes up with like the personality types of like people who like traveling and people who like some people have this like natural, like, I'll just go somewhere I've never been where I don't speak that language, where they don't drive on the same side of the road, and I'm sure it'll be fine. And I could never plan a trip. I could never imagine doing anything like that. Like, it would be hard enough for me to go to like another city in the US without someone who had a plan. I'd be like, well, what do I do? I guess I'll just
You
like
know,
wander. I don't
I
really know how to travel, I
you
guess. I
would
feel like I'm
you would
bad at
figure it
travel.
out. No, you would figure it out. I my father is a very much that person that's like, let's just go. And he lived in Spain for a while. He recently lived in Turkey for a while.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so
Wow.
he's a very adventurous spirit. And so I think, and my mother is also extremely adventurous. And so I feel like both of them were like, just go, you'll figure it out. And it hasn't failed me so far, although that's a dangerous mentality. So
Has it? That's what I say about my gambling addiction.
yeah, exactly.
So, okay, when did your dad, hit the front lines of spiritual warfare as Bible man? Like, how old were you when that all started?
So my parents basically found Christian spirituality when they were in AA together. And that was a little bit before I was born. And that was like 1990 when I was born. Um, and then they ended up basically staying out in LA for quite a little bit, like 2 years.
Is that
So
UFOs landing on your hotel,
we're
Casey?
so I'm waiting out a snowstorm as we're doing this
Oh,
podcast, and there's some jerk off like spinning in circles in the parking lot. That's what that noise is.
he's having the night of his life. We should not interrupt him.
Not
It's
too
it's Garden City, Kansas. Like, it's too dark to shovel cow manure. So what else are you
Oh
gonna
my
do?
goodness.
in the church that I kind of grew up in, the one that I spent my teenage years in. They had this awning that came out that you could like pull your car under and drop off people who didn't like to get wet walking in the rain. And it was like one during one snowstorm, some of the youth group kids decided to go to the church parking lot and do donuts, and they fishtailed right into it and knocked the column completely over, and the awning fell down. And it just, I mean, it stayed like that for a few weeks before anyone was able to fix it. But God, that was so funny because the kids who did it were total doofuses too. And
Doofus or
They were
not, I feel like they were challenging like a monastic lifestyle. They were like,
yeah,
you will get wet on the way to church, you know? Like,
I think they were tempted back into their old lives.
oh boy. My goodness. So, anyways, yes. So, returning, I was born in the early '90s. My parents lived in California for about a year or 2 years, and my father had a job opportunity in the Midwest. And I think Bible Man started up maybe 1993 or 1994, 95, somewhere in there. So I
okay,
was
that's actually
very
earlier than
young.
I thought. Okay,
Very, very young. Yeah. And so we were out here kind of working with a production company doing that at the time. And the production company was based out of Oregon. So that's the explanation for Kansas, Oregon, Kansas, Oregon, Kansas.
was that the job opportunity? Was the job opportunity with that production company, or
Um,
is it something else that,
I think
and then it coincided that he found that place while he was there?
I want to say, weirdly enough, I think the original job opportunity that brought my dad to Kansas was a fishing show or
Oh,
which for a landlocked state, I know that makes no sense. And so maybe I'm wrong, like don't hold my toes to the fire, um but yeah, he had a job opportunity, I think for something nature involved, and came out here because it was centrally located, and then through connections ended up with Bible Man.
gotcha. That's
Now,
Go ahead, Casey.
I'm really curious. So I listened to your interview with Boys Bible Study, and in it you mentioned that you were a Christian school kid,
At
and
100%, yes.
and I'm like very curious about your Christian school. especially with your dad being Bibleman, was it kind of like going to school and everybody knows that your dad's Tony Stark?
I would say grade school years, yes. I remember there was one day, it might be like the most emotionally exhilarating, powerful day as a child that I can remember. But I came in and I had merchandise, and I was like, "You take one, you take one." Like I was like the Oprah of Bibleman merch, and
Did you bring in a t-shirt
I
cannon?
did, I did. I was like, "Pa, pa, pa." No, I think that was probably 2nd grade, and that was one day out of all of it. For the rest of the time, aside from that one magical experience, it was like living under a microscope.
Yeah, it's kind of like being the pastor's kid.
Yes,
But better.
nationally. Yeah. Yeah, it was for the most part, I think I remember trying to live up to expectations more than I remember any fun. I mean, and I mean, I would tour with my dad. I had really cool experiences that not a lot of people have. But I think the scrutiny that came with that. I mean, it and everyone has their own. On that note of scrutiny, everyone has their own path of what they think is spiritual, and what they think is
Mhm.
good, and what they think is acceptable, and they're constantly measuring you to their own standards, and it's
Yes.
not even necessarily your standards, so like I knew people that were like, why did you dye your hair? That's ungodly. And
Whoa.
like, I mean, to that extreme. So it what I remember for the most part was a lot of scrutiny that had some really fantastic seasoning of good moments.
So
Was that school pretty strict?
Yeah, I mean, I always tell people I love where I went to school. I graduated with 8 people. That was like the entirety of my class, and every single person, that's a blessing and a curse because it feels like family, right? So just like family, when you're going through something, they're there, they're up in your business, and just like family, when it's bad, it's like uncomfortable, and you have to see these people that you don't like every single day. There's no escape. So I went to a school that had, you know, a dress code for how long guys' hair could be, and like no, colored hair, skirts to the, ankles or whatever. So it was very, very strict. And there was a lot that came with that. I also know that they loved me and supported me in the best way they knew how. And
did your dad donate to the school?
no.
Oh, okay. We
Nope.
get it. She's one of the donors' kids. We'll make sure that she feels well loved. Here we go.
Okay, yeah, no, he didn't donate. I can promise, I can promise. They loved me in the best way they knew how, and I mean, my mother's father is extremely flamboyantly gay from the 1960s, floor length muumuus and fur coats with high heels. And I mean, that showing up to grandparents' day with a diamond ring on every finger for a conservative family that's never seen anything like that in Kansas, that's a
Yeah,
lot. And
that's
so
amazing.
and I understand that they did their best to love me. Um and they tried within their own box of what's acceptable, right? So like I loved it even though it had problems. It was difficult, but I loved them.
So I get that because I went to a school that was very similar. Like I think I had 8 kids in my class,
Mhm.
when I graduated, and like it was definitely like home,
Mhm.
and all of my friends, were there, and I went to church with all the same people too, so it was like this very tight little circle. Uh, so I get that. Like I liked the school. I was very protective. At some point, my parents were like, maybe you should go to a real school, and I was like, no, I don't want to leave. I need a Christian education and I need to stay and blah, blah. But yeah, you do look back and you're like, God, there's a lot of stress over things that just didn't matter at all.
Right.
you know?
It's kind of a little hot box to put teenagers in, I think. Like they're already trying to find themselves, but I also know that again, at least where I went, everything was operating out of good intentions. So I'm like, I can't really hold that against you, you know? So
Do
you
you,
were doing what you thought was good.
do you remember what curriculum you guys used?
Bob Jones University.
Ah, okay.
Oh,
BJU.
yes. And every time I watch Lady Killers with Tom Hanks, I laugh my ass off.
You have to remind me of that because I saw that movie a long time ago.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is bringing something back.
So it totally, that movie skated underneath the radar, I think. But the gal that he's staying with really just wants to donate all her money to Bob Jones University because she thinks it's so holy. And every time I watch it, I cry laughing. And I mean, you know, no spoilers. It's been out for a fucking decade, but she ends up donating all of this stolen money to Bob Jones University, and I was like, God damn, Bob Jones, getting yours out
Oh my
here.
god, that's so. So I was homeschooled. We used the Bob Jones University material. So it's crazy that that didn't sink in. That didn't burn into my memory a little better because I would have thought that was funny. Because even when at the time when I saw it when it came out, I was in high school and I would have thought even then that it was had a good sense of humor about things making fun of Christianity as long as it didn't go too far. But I would have thought that was so funny, and I cannot believe I didn't remember that.
Oh, it's such a good one. I honestly, it's just, it kills me every time.
Can
We
I want to do a rabbit trail over to your very flamboyantly gay grandpa.
Oh, 100%. Oh my goodness.
Because
Yeah.
first of all, the mental image I get from him coming to your school is just perfect. I can't think of something better for a TV show or something along those lines. Like
You
it would be
he
amazing.
was a bold man.
And
you want the full rounded spectrum of the picture?
yes,
He
definitely.
he would introduce himself to my teachers and take their hand in his and say, "Oh, it's a pleasure for you to meet me," and kiss his own hand.
I love this guy. I love him so much. I
And no one knew what to do with it, guys. Everyone was like, "Harleigh's weird." Like,
even now, even I wouldn't know what to do if someone introduced themselves. Like that is not a normal way to introduce yourself, no matter how gay you are. That's just not. But I would be stunned silence if someone introduced themselves to me like that, and it would be like just a perfect moment that would stick with me forever.
honestly, I don't know if it's like mortifying or inspiring to kiss your own ring when you
It's
introduce yourself to someone. I can't decide. It's
It all
somewhere in
depends on the
between.
crowd, and that's the right crowd.
but what's inspiring is truly that your grandpa. I don't know many grandpas who are out. Like a lot of people over 60 are like that was if you're over 60, it was not an easy time to come out. Never
Right.
mind be that flamboyant. So
I
that's impressive.
Yeah, I have to say, I do have a lot of respect. And this is funny, just tying into my school education. I remember I had a teacher at one point that said, "I don't think I could ever have lunch with someone who's gay." And I challenged that in my class, and I was given an assignment to go home and come up with scriptures to support my perspective. And the teacher and I had a debate for an entire class, like an hour and a half. And at the end of it, he was like, "Harleigh, you've really challenged me, and I want to say I'm sorry, and you've given me a lot to think about."
That's fucking cool.
Yeah, and I respect that teacher so much because he was able to absorb my perspective, but I was like, and my perspective is my mother was grew up in an abusive home when she was very young. My parents wrote a book about it, but the best points in her childhood was going to see her dad, and he was flamboyantly gay. The only time she got bought new dresses was by his gay friends, and it was West Hollywood, and it was, you know, lavish parties. And my grandfather was a singer, toured with Johnny Mathis. He was assistant to Lana Taylor. I mean, it was like old Hollywood black and white film stars, just
Wow.
fabulousness. And that was the best part of her childhood. And so I couldn't not defend that community. Um, you know, in a classroom setting when I was young and I didn't really even know where I landed at the time. But that's yeah, uh he's passed since. Taylor Perot, my grandfather, he was wonderful and wild and difficult. Difficult as hell.
I can imagine that personality type coming with some
Yeah,
difficulties.
100%, 100%. But I have hilarious memories of him showing up at my school and making my teachers kiss his rings. So, and he taught me how to do my makeup. So thanks, Grandpa.
That's amazing.
Oh,
So so you did you get a I guess you didn't get an anti-gay kind of upbringing then. That's for an evangelical upbringing, like that wasn't a prevalent part of it then,
Not
or a part of it at all.
it was non-existent in my household. Um,
Wow,
we
that's like
were
refreshing to hear
yeah.
that someone escaped that message who grew up in evangelicalism.
I think excuse me, I think I spent a lot of my youth battling that dogma that comes,
Hmm.
naturally with evangelical, um, points and curriculum. But I no, my parents were very progressive, and both of them never had any issue with the queer community, and it was nothing but love. So
That's amazing. You just I feel like it's such a big part of the evangelical community, and evangelical like Christian entertainment toes a line. Not that Bibleman would have been like slaying queers or anything like that in an episode, but like it's like it it does like and it wouldn't make its way into children's media because they want to like protect them from even the concept. Like, well, if we talk about it, then they're going to know about it, and then they might become. It's like they have such bad understandings of how like human development. But to grow up in that Christian entertainment world, um, and to not let that, and to not even have that like that. I mean, you were actively combating that message in school and confronting it, and as opposed to like just falling in line with what was going on around you. And to me, that's amazing. I think that's one of the coolest things I've heard in a while when it comes to people who grew up in such a. It's just there's very clear cut standards around how this community functions, no matter where you are. And for you to have escaped that mentality is really cool.
thank you. I honestly have to give that to my parents. Like
Yeah.
even the boldness to show up at school and be like, "No," like we don't do that. We love people. That's all my parents, and I am so grateful for both of them. That they were always just like love is love. It's something that seemed natural to me, and it was always surprising when I was met with an adverse opinion.
Yeah, and you probably heard that a lot. I mean, it doesn't. It's like end times and anti-gay stuff. It's like that's that's like most of the messaging. It seems
an
like
abortion.
an
Mhm.
abortion. Thank you. Oh God,
Yep.
I forgot the third piece of the trifecta.
Yes.
So, kind of on that note, like your teacher was talking about, one of the things that we've talked about a lot, because we grew up in, we're a little bit older than you, but I think same era where like there was a lot of Christian media and stuff like that that was put out. I was a big like Christian rock kid, and I didn't listen to any secular music. There was like these TV shows and all of these different things, and there's a weird line somewhere in there where like you know I think Christians really like to think of all of these like Christian parallel institutions as like outreach tools,
Yes.
but it was really more of like a protectionist thing, right? So I was just watching the episode of Bibleman that you were in earlier today, and throughout the whole thing they keep talking about like don't hang out with the wrong people, and don't go back to your old ways and stuff.
I guess I was
And
just
like
tempted into my old life and stuff like that. Like,
smoking and drinking like I did when I was 6.
yeah. Yep.
But it's funny because like the stuff that your dad was producing, I don't know, because he was kind of like right on the line there of like a lot of the people that were consuming the stuff, his show and stuff like that were very like protectionist and don't touch my kids with all this stuff. We're gonna be a light to the world, but over here where it's safe.
Mhm.
And meanwhile, like your parents are kind of like defying a lot of those conventions around like, well, don't give your kids secular media and, don't consort with gay people and stuff like that. I don't know. Did they get pushback on that?
Um, you know, first of all, yes, my parents are very rock and roll. Second of all, they got pushed back publicly. There's another very prominent Christian celebrity, just that's all I'll say. That
Unfortunately, that is all you're gonna say, isn't it?
I'll let you guys think about it. I'll
Sure,
let
Cameron, you piece of
I'll let
garbage.
the no, ooh, I'll let the listener decide. Um, but
It was Derek Webb back in his evangelical days.
yeah, just very very aggressively was like they pushed the boundaries too much as a family, which is funny because publicly what we showed in Christian ministry was the most tame version of my family. Like and to be mad at that, like I'm like, oh, you should see Thanksgiving, like my parents were always very progressive and their faith never affected that. And I think that's something that like that I really admired, have your faith, have your spiritual journey, but you can still marry that with a progressive or understanding mindset. They're not mutually exclusive. And that's
Mhm.
something that I grew up really having exemplified before my eyes with my family. Unfortunately, in the 90s in Christian media, like you had to present a certain thing, right? So that was kind of what got presented. And then, there was a moment where everyone was like, Bible man is covered in tattoos, and like and for me, I'm like, he's always been like, just because it's not purple span. Do you want tattoos or purple spandex? I'll take the tattoos. Like
Right.
between the two. So they did have pushback, I think publicly, um for having sword fights in Bible Man and not being the people that shame the queer culture, all of those things. um and even the movie that we did, The Public Life of Sissy Pike, was basically about that struggle between people that don't want to even open up to harder worship music or clothing style or and I think that what ended up happening is we got this really like produced watered down version of the message, but it was still was the heart to be like, what we want to say is because someone's gay or they have tattoos or they look different or their nose is gauged or they have they're lesbian or whatever, it that has nothing to do with our spiritual journey and our relationship with God. And that was always the message we were working towards, again, because of the time and the production. I feel like it kind of gets down to like, this girl listens to rock music and wears tie-dye, and that becomes the point of conflict versus, maybe someone is bisexual or, there's a larger point of conflict, right? That we wanted
Mhm.
to communicate, that we had to choose the tame version. Um, and so that's what I grew up with, a household that really just wanted that to be the message. If
Yeah,
that makes
that's
sense.
it does, and it
Yeah.
does, and it's such a unique take on someone on the again, the Christian entertainment industry. So when y you what how old were you when you were on the episode of Bibleman? You were like around. I mean, well. First of all, actually, did Bibleman span your entire childhood? I want to say it was early. It was 90s to
2006,
2006.
2005, something like that. Yeah. Yeah, I pretty much grew up with it being the existence. So, my mom was the voice of the computers. She also was the gossip queen. Um, I'll never I mean, as if gay grandpa wasn't enough coming to school, my mom picked me up in full hair and makeup as the gossip queen one day and was like, "Get in the car, we're filming." And she looks like a witch, like driving down the road. Like I'm like, "Oh, I'm just trying to be normal." Um,
I gotta see this. Yeah.
please, the gossip queen. But no, so it was. I mean, my mom did the voice. My dad, produced and acted in it, and so and that was just ever since I can remember. So it was, I could see you laughing.
Yeah.
God, they went hard on the makeup for the villains.
Yeah.
That was a lot more than I was expecting.
You know what she looks like? She looks like at the at the Wizard of Oz. There's like the palace guards at the evils.
Oh
Like
yeah.
that's what she looks like.
It's straight up. It is a lot. So that, picked me up from school. So I just, every day it was something new with me. But no, yeah, it was pretty much, I grew up with that being a part of my life. So we had a like audio recording studio in our basement. My mom would do lines, and read and record down there. My dad would produce and edit. Um, and that was ever since I was young up until he had a back injury. So it was pretty much my whole existence. I think I did that episode, I think I was 9 or 10.
Okay. Man, so I guess I didn't realize that he was like he did all of that. Like the editing, they did a lot of it in your basement. So was he like in the Hollywood industry at some level before moving? Because you said his first opportunity had to do with maybe like a fishing show or something nature related. What was his background? Was it in media?
Yeah, so my dad's first job, I believe he was single digits, maybe 8-ish, maybe 6, somewhere around there. And he started working in California when he was a kid. And his parents, he said, "Mom, Dad, I really want to be an actor." And this was, in the 60s. And his parents said, "You have 1 month to book a job." And he did. They were like, "If you don't book a job in a
You're 8
month,"
years old.
yeah, you're
You have
8
1
years
month to
old,
book
you
your
have
own
1 month.
job.
Yep.
Pre-internet.
100%. And
Hit the
That's how
road,
he got
kid.
the role of
just
Chucky.
yeah, and so and he I mean, he was just a little surfer kid, and he started working. He did like Gunsmoke and Little House on the Prairie, and a lot of TV until he landed the role of Tommy Bradford in Eight Is Enough. He was like the kind of middle teenage kid heartthrob of the time, and then he developed a band off of that, and then worked later as Buddy Lembeck on Charles in Charge in the
He was like
80s.
the Jonathan Taylor Thomas of the gas crisis.
He he was. I have so many odd pictures of him shirtless in my house, and in any other situation it would be unacceptable. But
Oh my god, that's funny.
But yeah, he was your classic surfer kid that was just teenage heartthrob in the 70s and 80s. And that was kind of what he did. And he was always fascinated with like how things worked behind the scenes. And so I think it came naturally to him to write and direct and produce.
So did you?
So I feel like one of my favorite things, because I work in the car industry, and the automotive service and stuff, and like one of my favorite things is like when you get a bunch of like old guys that have been around forever from that industry, and they just like sit around and trade crazy stories about so and so who got fired for stealing from a dealership, and this person, had an affair with. He's got to have like so many great like industry stories.
They're incredible. Yeah, they're the best, honestly. I don't know how much I can say without getting a lot of people on my phone, but they are fantastic. Yes, 100%. And he's funny too. I mean, he's one of the most mischievous, lighthearted, everything is fun people I've ever met. And not just saying that because he's my dad, but that his energy is just 110% all the time. And so not only does he have stories of situations that have happened, but stories of him creating situations for no reason at all. And and they're hilarious. Oh my goodness. And Hollywood in the 80s. Whew. That was
Yeah, I'm sure that was a wild time.
That was a time. Yeah. And I have to be careful with what I say, but
what was the contrast like then, going from like that like Hollywood industry to then like going into, because we're always like fascinated by, when you talk to like somebody who was in a Christian band like in the heyday, like 2001 or something like that, like what was that industry like? What were the people like? I mean, was it what you expected it to be as a kid, or was it a little more cynical and money motivated? Like what is the general feeling?
so first of all, I think that the Christian entertainment industry is kind of like Hollywood on a 1/18th of a scale, right? So it's like there's still politics that you're dealing with production issues. There's still, people trying to make money off of marketing and exploiting their audience in that way, right? Like just because it's spiritually based doesn't mean that doesn't exist. Um but it's much smaller, so there's a lot more meeting of the same people, and there's like 4 companies versus like 20 or whatever, so it's a small scale. um I think that, again, for my parents, they thankfully they never changed their mentality on what they stood for. So whether it was like a progressive opinion, or whether it was like we want to put out a quality product, or we want to, write something that's going to be entertaining for everybody, and we don't just want to phone it in, as best we can. So they maintained consistency in their standards for themselves. So I don't know if it was really a ton different for them, although just a smaller scale. And also, while we were doing this, he was still working with VH1. We were still doing interviews with People magazine, so there was still some tie. I think, if anything, the only thing that they ran into that I can remember them being like, this is weird, is they wanted to be honest with their stories and who they were.
Mhm.
And they kept running into like censorship issues. So
From which media outlets? Like People, or from the Christian media outlets?
from the producers and from the companies that were creating their content. So for instance, my mom wanted to tell a story publicly about a time that she was overdosing in Hollywood, and she has told this story to me many times, but she was overdosing on heroin, and someone was like, fuck, Melo, fuck, pick up your feet. And she wanted to tell that story, and the company that was handling at the time, handling the publicity, was like, can you just say, dang it, pick up your feet? And I remember my mom being like, I was about to die. No one's like, dang it, gosh darn, I think I'm
Gosh darn.
overdosing.
Gee, golly.
Just
It's
like
like
snap
Oh.
to for a second. You're like, watch your language, sir.
Yeah, oh,
it's like an
jeez
episode of Leave It to
Louise.
Beaver.
Yeah, oh no, I'm vomiting and foaming at the mouth, and that was more of what they were like. This is weird, because they wanted to be more authentic, I think, than they were
Mhm.
given the stage for all the time. That being
Hey, I'm surprised they let her tell that story anyways, because they don't really like like rough testimony stories from women.
Mhm. Yeah.
We like drug addicts or drug addiction stories to be from men, or like, sexual promiscuity stories, like being saved from, the grip of lust, to be from men. But women don't get to tell a lot of those stories like from the stage.
My mother is an incredible warrior, and for everything that it's worth, that book they wrote together is really incredible, and she goes into her story. She was abused at a young age, ran away from home at 16, lived on the streets of Hollywood, became a dancer, danced with Paula Abdul, became an actress. Like, she
Wow.
Wow.
she is a mighty, mighty warrior of a person, and she had the opportunity to tell her story, but it just didn't really gain as much traction as I think she deserved. So
Mm.
their book is called Grace is Enough. It's old. It people on Amazon give it 1 star, but damn, go get it.
They give it 1 star. Most of them probably didn't read it. They're probably just like, I'm gonna shit on something I haven't actually taken the time to read based on concepts and things like that.
I'm blessed with an interesting family, and I think a lot of people, just when you line it all up, they're like, this seems like a lie. And it's like, no, no,
Yeah.
no, it's not, I promise. So, but no, she's incredible, and I think she really, really fought for that authenticity in the media presence. Um, and I respect that so much.
So you growing up around Bibleman and also Christian culture. So you were Christian schooled until you graduated. Was there a time where you were like, did you have a rebellious phase where you're like, this shit's dumb, I don't like it anymore. I don't want people to, like, if you meet people outside of the Christian environment where you're like, I don't want to talk about this. I don't. What was your feelings and like your progression of how you felt about that being a part of your life?
I think, when I was 13, I definitely had my I don't want to look conservative phase. So I did the classic 13-year-old little punk emo girl thing. Especially, I mean, it was 2003, so it was
Yeah. So okay, pause. What were you listening to? We're talking
um
punk emo 2003.
all right. So I will say I was definitely on the, like, as far as music goes, not as angry as everybody else. I did a lot of like independent folk emo. So I was honestly, the end all be all for me was Tilly in the Wall and Bright Eyes.
Okay. I actually don't know anything about Tilly in the Wall. I know Bright Eyes, um, but I can't dish on them. I was hoping that I'd be able to.
I've always had good taste in music. So even when I was immature. um
I don't know. You haven't said a word about POD.
Yeah. I think I think we have a unwritten rule that we can't go an episode without Casey bringing up POD. I think that is that right?
It's the greatest band alive or dead.
I love it. Yeah, no, so I was running around doing some rascally shit. Um, 13, just trying to figure that out. But then I don't think I ever really questioned like what I was like the love elements of Christianity. I think I questioned the rigidity quite a bit
Hmm.
at that age. Um, and then as I've gotten older, there's just an origami swan of things to unfold, of questions I have and things I have opinions on. But as a young person, I think that it was pretty much just questioning rigidity or dogma. Like, you say this thing, but why? You know?
Especially not seeing it in your home. You're like, well, I'm also like see a lot of us didn't have uh Christianity played out in a in the way that it played out in your home in order to confront some of that rigidity. So it's like for you to experience like I mean, really a true like evangelical Christianity in the sense that like of belief and theology for the most part, um, and then to see the rest of it do something different. Like most of our upbringings are like, and most of the people we've talked to, it's like you grew up in that and anything that didn't align with it is outside of it. And we never really experienced a Christianity. We never saw like people seemingly having an authentic Christian experience that didn't already believe all the things that we did. And then that made it so difficult for us to like accept anything outside of that. So for you to have like that confrontation and that conflict growing up, I think that's an experience that's honestly pretty unique, to have that level of conflict with an evangelical upbringing.
I'm so grateful, and I think it's something that has been a joy for me over the past few podcasts to be able to kind of just be, put it out there for the people that are listening that was the household I was brought up in. And um I know so many people that are still living under that, you know, rigid structure that saw Bibleman as something that was so beneficial. And just to say, hey, just so you know, like, this is an alternate way of thinking. And even if it's not something that I'm not engaged in uh Christianity as an adult right now, but even if that's not my space, like, I don't want people to be living under a burden of do's and don'ts. That's not what it's about. And even if it's not my thing right now, like, to even be able to say that's not what it's about. And if you grew up looking at this, hero, and that was something that was a pillar for you, let's kind of deconstruct that a tiny bit, and challenge that. And that's something that I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to talk about with you guys.
Well,
Yeah.
there's a word for people like you, stumbling block.
I'm sorry. I'm known for my loud laugh. I had to move my microphone for a minute. I'm getting it tattooed here tomorrow.
just a block.
It's a square. That's all I'm getting.
Just like the junior high notebook 3D cube.
Please make it like not right though somehow, like
it's drawn crookedly between college rule lines.
It's so true, guys. It's so true. I have had someone actually say about me, I have never seen anyone manifest Satan like that little girl.
Whoa. You were a rascal.
I am a rascal. Yeah, no, but like, my goodness, it and okay, all right, stumbling block, I'll take it, but I want to at least sit down and challenge, I'll take it as long as you hear me out.
What were some of the things that you started when did you start making shifts out? When did you start thinking, I don't know if this is for me anymore?
To be honest, I think there were a lot of moments when I was like 16, where I saw the evangelical church as a whole, doing things that were hurtful and harmful. And that's not, it's not everybody. I don't want to like get raked over the coals for that, but just as an organization, I started to go, hey, I'm not really sure I like this, and it's a theme with everybody. And then I think it just kind of increased as I got older, and I would say by the time I was maybe my early 20s, I started to kind of deconstruct certain things that were told to me that I never questioned. And it just led to more questions that I couldn't answer. And so I have respect for everyone's spiritual journey, but I think my early 20s were kind of where I began to realize that this wasn't resonating in my soul. And I love all of the teachings on love. That's great. But there's just a lot of things. My mid-20s was also when I came out as bisexual. So I think that had something to do with it as well. Is just
Yeah, I'm sure they weren't going to let that one slide too easily.
it's hard to work that in. Yeah.
The bisexuals, though, they get to fly under the radar in Christianity a little bit longer than everyone else.
Yes, 100%. Because we spend that many years going, nope, that's not what I'm thinking. we
Yeah.
we spend longer in denial,
Yeah.
So, I think as I got older and I started to learn who I was a little bit better, learn what I stood for, and start to ask myself questions about what I believe spirituality looks like. And I can't define that for people because I've some of the most spiritually inspiring people I know have been Buddhists and have been um agnostics or Muslims or witches. Like I I can't look at any of those people that have enriched my life and say, "Well, you're wrong." It's your path. And I can still get a lot out of what you're teaching, even if it's not my path.
Mhm.
And that I think is where I ended up landing.
I feel like there's a certain point, like as you find yourself moving out, where you start to look at like Sam's like talked. I forget the way that you phrase it, Sam, but it's like this like obsession with like correctness
Mhm,
about things, like having the one true,
mhm.
you know, viewpoint, and this like constant obsession with like ultimate truth and stuff.
Certainty.
It just
It's
seems
all
so.
it's the certainty quest.
Mhm.
Yes, there we go. It just seems so dumb. Like the farther along you go, the more you realize like you really have to have blinders on
Mhm.
to still think that you have that monopoly on truth, you know.
Well, isn't there an old saying, and maybe this is something famous that I'm just going to be like, isn't there a thing, and I'm going to sound really stupid, but isn't isn't there an old thing about the more I learn, the more I know, the less I know?
Yeah. I mean,
Like
yeah.
I can't
It's, and then even it's like, I would say a more like modern take is like there's that like there's actually studies done on like how much people think they know, and it's like the more educated somebody is, the more likely they are to report knowing less.
Right. Well, and I don't want to compare Christianity to flowers for Algernon, but I mean it's really nice to have one small pinhole of a viewpoint, right? Because it seems true at that point. And when you
Mhm.
kind of pan out and you look at everyone's way of life and you look at their experiences, your viewpoint becomes challenged. So yeah, it's more comfortable to live in a smaller space, but man, I don't think that's beneficial, and I think the older I got, just the more I leaned into that. I would rather experience a lot and say, I don't know at the end of the day than hole up with and hang on to something that isn't really benefiting me in the end anyways. You know what I mean?
E- Even I don't know, being able to say I don't know is something that wasn't like, it's not really afforded to us growing up,
Mhm.
and it's strange like that there's such a lack of there's such a discomfort with being able to say I don't know, but I believe X, Y, and Z, and it's like you can't even bridge that gap. You just have to. It's like I'll I'm guessing most of us and anyone listening has very, very seared like moments that are seared into their brain as like, I cannot believe I had that stupid fucking conversation. I
Yeah.
and you'll remember it for the rest of your life. And one of the ones for me was like this like circulatory reasoning of like, I know that this is true. Like I don't just believe it. It's not a belief. This is a fact, and and it's true, and that's why it's like. And I just kept trying to like circle around this, and they're just like, yeah, but like I can tell you that I know as much as you do that you're wrong, and I was like short circuiting over it, and it was like this over and over. It's like, well, I know that I'm right. I know that I'm right, and it just gets to this like na 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 boo boo fucking horse shit, and you're like, why? You I reflected on it at the time and was like, I like it challenged you, kind of like turn into a child sometimes, and I still cringe thinking about that moment and that conversation.
I do really wonder if it's like comforting to anyone. Like I feel like it's easy to look at it from the outside when people are like they're they have this performative certainty that they're constantly like, they're constantly like blasting out into the ether, but I don't know. It
It seems
feels
like
to
it's a
me,
burden. It's a burden.
it
Well,
seems like a burden. It's like it's a constant litmus test that you have to pass over and over again, that like your utmost being says, I don't know if this is true or not, and yet you have to keep like telling yourself that it is 100%.
I was just gonna say it's at that point you're not arguing with anyone but yourself.
100%. That's
Like
such a good way to put it.
you're telling yourself that to reassure yourself. And I personally, as someone that has proven over and over again to be imperfect, I love the words I don't know. I don't know.
Mhm.
I
That's comforting.
I
Yes.
find
That's
comfort in that.
comforting.
Yeah, like, you may be right, I may be right, but like you said, earlier, at the end of the day, you know as much as I do,
Yeah.
and both of
It's
us are valid.
the it's like the absolutism is, I don't want to, it's, this might be a bad comparison or might bother one or two people, but it's like like if people have OCD, or it's like the idea is like whatever they're obsessing, you want to like find ways to interrupt that obsessive pattern, because the obsession feeds into, like, it's self-validating.
Mhm,
Even so, even in my work, I'm a adjustment counselor at an elementary school, and we have students who, like, they might exhibit violent behaviors, and sometimes that violent behavior is a reaction to a moment, and then after they're like, that moment's passed, everything kind of levels out. But some students are getting, like, they get worse over time because it their gratification comes from the act of violence. So
mhm,
it's like the actual harming of someone else with a physical contact. That's self-stimulate. So like it goes in circles. So the more they do it, the more they reinforce that behavior and their desire to do it, and it's bringing them that satisfaction. And it's like that's what I think of now when I think of that like certainty obsession of like it's like an OCD, or like like a self gratify. It's like it's not helping you, but
mm-mm,
it's putting you further into that like feedback loop where you're like, I it's like it's breaking that cycle, that it's the healthy thing to do. Like it's breaking out of that type of obsessive type kind of thinking that's like the only thing that's going to really bring you comfort. Cause like the person with OCD, they're not as they continually do the same thing over and over again, they're never satisfying it. And it never brings gratification, but it's like through the struggle of in the hard work of being like in learning the coping skills to be like, I'm recognizing this pattern again, and I'm going to take on what feels like suffering to try to put some sort of stop to that. And you again, OCD is very different than being evangelical, but like I think the comparison helps in the way that like you see those in myself. I did the same thing. You're you're just stuck in this infinite cycle of like having to prove yourself, and it was never relaxing. You
mhm,
never like just like floated into your beliefs and felt like they were really part of you. It was always like this partition of like you're trying to like force this, but it never really just like meshed with
Where'd
who
you
you
go?
were.
oh
you you were
no.
trying to prove it to somebody else, to prove it to yourself that it was
Oh
correct.
man, who was behind this one? Was it like the rapscallion guy
uh
or whatever?
Luxor Spondroth, probably.
Oh yeah, he was kind of
He's
like
a
the
big deal.
Sidious
Yeah.
of Bibleman universe, right?
Yeah, he's kind of the big bad, the Bowser, if you will.
Oh man. I feel like we a lot of things get rebooted, and I feel like a Bibleman reboot with like some new villains could work really well.
I think um I think it would, but I would love to see it really tongue in cheek and like facetious. Like I would like the writing to be a little spicy, you know? Like, yeah. I think that's the way to go with it if you're gonna do it.
See, I had more of like a Zack Snyder sort of interpretation going on.
Oh, love that
Maybe
too.
like we bring him into, like Spider-Man operates in New York instead of Metropolis. Like maybe Bibleman, like, fights Jihadi John or kills the Zodiac.
I think I think Bibleman should have some kind of like fortress in Florida, and maybe he like infiltrates Mar-a-Lago and like can fight Trump and return some classified documents. Like that to me, chef's kiss.
That would be fun. Yeah. Maybe we go a gorier route with this version too. Like this Bibleman gets an R rating for sure.
Yes, absolutely. It's Deadpool, but it's Bibleman. So
Yeah.
Oh my god. I would say Dark and Gritty.
Dark and Gritty.
I want to see that remake.
I have the helmet like right there, like just off to my right.
Really?
Yeah,
That's so
yeah.
cool.
Hang on.
Yeah, get that.
Oh, man,
the
I'm
official
excited.
helmet. It's so dope.
Nice.
So it's just
like the props are really not bad in that show.
the people that did the like helmet and the armor were the same people that did like the Abyss, and like it was a studio out in Hollywood that, and I think they also did one of the Batman costumes. But
Oh, cool.
yeah, my favorite part is if you look inside, it says this one fits. Obviously was on tour. So yeah, that's just hanging out. It's nice. Get a cocktail in ya and pass it around to see who can try it on.
Yes, that's some fun
it's a
stuff
good
to have
party
around the
trick.
house.
Yeah.
What is it? The helmet of
Salvation.
Salvation. By far the vaguest.
Yeah, helmet of salvation.
The Vegas. It was the God. I don't actually remember the full armor of God. That's pretty sad.
Breastplate of righteousness, right?
Shoes of peace, sword of truth.
We love that guy.
I love him. He's a beautiful human.
Good soul.
Yeah, Shield of Faith, right?
Shield of faith.
Sword of the Spirit.
Sword of the Spirit. Breastplate of righteousness. Shoes of peace. Helmet of salvation. I think that might be it. I don't think there's no like
shoes. I didn't know there. I don't even remember there being shoes.
Jockstrap.
I was just gonna say the same thing. I was like, "There's no jockstrap, like or cup."
The Codpiece of Condemnation.
Oh.
I was looking at I was watching the episode on YouTube, and I was like looking at the comments to see what people were saying, and there was like some debate over what lightsaber style Bibleman uses. So
really,
yeah.
What were the arguments? Like what?
Well, they're like, it seems largely defensive based, and sort of built around deflecting blaster fire. So he's kind of like an Obi-Wan, Ataru, or whatever they call it.
I am going to give it up to that person for really taking some interest in the lore and doing their homework. That is impressive. And
yeah, it was a Bibleman wiki.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
There's a lot.
There's some people out there doing the Lord's work for sure.
There's a wiki for everything, and it's always people who are too old to care about the thing that they're caring a lot about.
We had a guy on that was on Adventures in Odyssey, which I'm sure you know Adventures in Odyssey.
I remember, yeah.
So we had a guy that was a character on Adventures in Odyssey for a number of years, and we were talking about it in preparation for the show. I'm like going back and looking at some of the stuff that's online about it and everything, and there's Adventures in Odyssey fan channels on YouTube, and it's like you said, it's people who are they're very old to be this invested in Adventures in Odyssey.
You know what?
If you're in your 20s and you're still like diagnosing episodes and stuff, hey, good for you if you're having fun, but
They do the Disney thing where
I
like everyone's like, this movie actually connects to this movie and in
oh,
the world, and then they
yes.
intertwine with this character and this. It's like, oh my god, dude, get a fucking life.
Guys, I have to be honest, I'm 50% cynical bitch, and I'm like, "Yes!" And then 50% of me is like, "But life is hard." And I too have spent time researching Julia Child's first, fucking episode or something dumb, like so I want to agree, and then I also want to congratulate those people because they obviously have found something that means a lot, and to be quite frank, that type of investment is more than I've put into it, and I grew up with it. So if I could give them an acknowledgement that they are expert level status, I would love to bestow that because I'm
Well,
not.
Yeah,
if I was
I
gonna
mean, there's
pick an
too many
obsession
stupid
now,
things.
it would be Beast Wars. That's what I would go with.
Oh,
Beast
If I had to
Wars.
pick a childhood thing that I loved that I needed to obsess about, I would go with Beast Wars.
good choice, good choice. I don't have a childhood thing, but I am very obsessed with French history. So,
Okay.
yeah. So, I've spent my time reading court transcripts from the French Revolution,
That's
and
amazing.
and
Whoa.
no one would think that's cool. So I have to give it up for the people that are like, this sword is a deflection sword, and I'm like, I get it.
The deflection
You
sword.
know,
I
like,
think a lot of Christians wield the deflection sword, to be perfectly
I
honest.
think I think it's the primary weapon is the deflection sword.
Yeah, yeah. I think I'm in the. Well, I shift around. I listened to a lot of Star Wars books for a little while, and then it was all like way too many serial killer podcasts and things like
Oh,
that. And now
yes.
it's just all history crap.
Give me a good true crime podcast any day. I am obsessed. I love it. And I'm also I play D&D. So that's a whole world of obsession that
Nice.
not a lot of people like. Um
It's
so
my siblings have played D&D for a number of years, and it's something I've never. Here's the thing: this is what I think is cool about D&D people is they can get out of their own fucking way better than most people, and like I wouldn't be able to get out of my own head. I would feel like I'm like stuck and like, oh, I feel silly. Like that's for people who just don't give a fuck and they can have fun with something. And
oh,
I always am like a little bit jealous of the freedom of people who play D&D.
I challenge you to try because the dice will force you to get out of your head. And it's just, I always tell people, I'm like, it's improv and it's just imagination with rules so that so that the story moves. You got to have rules so the story moves along. But other than that, we're playing imagination. It's no different than like running around in my backyard and being like, this stick is a sword,
Oh, and I did a lot of that. My brother and I had many welts from wiffle ball bats turned into swords.
Oh, see, you'd be perfect. You'd get it. You'd get it.
Are you one of those people that has like 50 different sets of like multicolored dice and stuff like that, or
Oh, that's me. I have all of my dice are like pink and sparkly, and I'll just get real weird with it. Every once in a while you got to put one in your mouth. They look like candy, and I'll be like, "Oh," and then spit it back out, and then I'll wash them so other people can play with them. I'm polite. I have manners, but but no, they're it's fun. It's a nice little escape from reality. So I can't judge on that note, I can't judge anybody for researching anything. Like I'm just like, go for it. Do your thing.
What's your longest running campaign?
I think it was a year and a half.
Really? Is
Yeah.
that actually? I say that like, oh wow, like I know, like is that long? A year and a half feels like a long time.
I think there are people that have been playing for a very long time, like 5-year campaigns.
That's wild to me. That's
Yeah,
so wild.
it's I think a year and a half is a solid run, but we also met like every other week, so you know
Yeah,
it doesn't feel like a long time. You don't get that far in the story, even though you're meeting that long.
gotcha. Yeah, I just when my brothers would play, my siblings, they would do like they had, I know they had a campaign going on for over a year, but they would, try to meet weekly, but everyone's adults, so it never really happens. And
Yes.
it's, and I guess if you have like 5 or 6 people and you're all trying to take turns, it is probably hard to get a lot done with every meetup.
Yeah, it's fun though, you know? I again, it's just imagination. It's just being a giant kid. It's adult kidding.
Yeah. Maybe I'll free my mind enough someday to take the plunge.
Try it, try it. It's fun.
So so do you consider yourself like a spiritual person? Like are you still into spirituality of a different sort nowadays? Where you find yourself at now?
I find myself gaining a lot of encouragement from spiritual like writings and from spiritual teachers, but I wouldn't say that I subscribe to a certain thing. So I what I like to think is that I let what encourages my heart towards goodness and love and being the person I want to see myself be, whatever does that, whatever propels me on that journey, that's a good thing for me.
Mhm.
If it inhibits that or if there's something I don't agree with, I don't subscribe. So it's pretty wishy-washy. Um but I again, I think there's so much beauty in spirituality, and I really respect people that have a spiritual practice. I find myself happier kind of gleaming the lessons that I need at the time rather than holding myself to standards. So I'm a little fluid with my spirituality right now.
I think that makes sense. I feel like even when it comes to spirituality in general, when you kind of like pull the camera back a bit and you see people within certain traditions taking that more mystical approach to things, there's a lot that your vocabulary might be a little bit different, but there's a lot of transcendence between them all, where there's like they all kind of pull at the same spiritual threads,
Hmm.
or maybe philosophical threads as they pertain to religion. um, and they have a lot more in common with each other than they do with their conservative counterparts within the same faith. Like, and I've always found that the further you pull things, like pull the camera back, the more you're like, okay, this is what's resonating with me more than anything at this point. And if you want to use this book or that theme, they're saying a lot of it. They're coming to similar conclusions about what it means to participate in a spiritual life of some sort.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I see a lot of common themes and again, as I said earlier, I'm not the person that can stand here and answer something for someone else that's had a completely different life experience than I have. And so the more that I let go of I'm the only one who's right, the more I begin to see other perspective and I'm moved by that perspective. And so incorporating that to me isn't it is something I want to do. It's not something scary. We can incorporate a lot of perspectives, you know, especially like you said when there's just common running themes throughout all of them. And so I I respect everyone's spirituality. But I think my view on what I believe has expanded exponentially in the past 10 years.
Hmm. I feel like,
Well,
not to like keep this going too much, but it's like the contention, right? It's like the respect for spirituality, or like it's like insofar as it's not stepping on other people's toes, right? And that's where I find things to become difficult. Is you're like, I want to say that if that's the path that works for you, great, but also could you stop being so mean about some of these things? It's
Yeah.
so hard. It's
I
like,
I have an extremely low tolerance for that. And it's
mhm.
probably due to my exposure. That's the one thing that I do have a low tolerance for. Um, you know, opinions and perspective that I respect but you don't have to be a dick. you know, and like, and you don't have to force
Yeah.
your opinions or your perspective on an entire nation. Like,
Yeah,
that's
right.
not what it's about.
It
Don't, like, let's get it straight here. I respect your belief, but like, that isn't everybody's. And if you think that, you know, a nation of millions of people need to adhere to your belief system, your head is up your asshole so far that I can't even help you. Like, you know, it's like, it's, you know, but just do your thing and love others, you know, give everyone space. We can all use a little space to believe and explore. And I think that's, you know, what I'd like to see.
Yeah, it's fine that you think I'm going to hell, but I don't believe you, so you don't have to tell me. You just keep that one to yourself.
Right. Or even
Unless I ask. I do like to ask people that question because it seems to make some people uncomfortable, but
my favorite thing to make people uncomfortable is even challenging the idea of hell biblically from a scriptural perspective, because there is a second death, not a hell. And it just, you want to see people get upset real fast, that's that's the one. Like, no, there's a cease to exist, not eternal torment. And if you look at it, that's what's in the Bible.
well, we know that's not true because I don't know if you saw Sam Smith and then recently Rihanna, Sam Smith at the Grammys and Rihanna at the halftime show, but I think that basically proves you wrong right now. So.
Yeah, and you know what? If Rihanna's halftime show was hell, okay.
Yeah.
I'll take it. Like, same with Sam Smith. They're amazing. Love, love, love. So yeah, no, I think, yeah, I think it's funny. People's opinions are funny.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this has been a lot of fun. Thanks
Yes.
for coming on, Harleigh. We really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
guys, thanks for exploring some like really thoughtful, in-depth topics. I thought this was going to be a little more fluff. I appreciate you both.
Well,
This
yeah,
was
thank
just
you.
very wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you have like a social media presence that or place people can find you, or?
Yeah, I just have an Instagram. It's at Dear Harleigh, DearHarleigh. But it's just personal. It's not anything crazy, but you know, I always like to hear from people, and I have talked with some people on there just about, you know, some thoughts from the past couple podcasts, and it's been really rewarding. So follow me if you like it. If you don't, that's cool. Respect that too. But no, this was great. Thank you guys so much.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks for listening. We will see you next time.